What would you search if you had just committed murder? How to hide a body? How long does DNA last? What temperature burns bones? These were real Google searches, made by real people who killed and got caught not by witnesses, but by their own fingertips. In today's chilling documentary, we dive deep into true crime stories where the internet history was the smoking gun. Cases cracked, not by forensics or confessions, but by Google. Let's begin. New Year's Eve is usually a time of celebration, laughter, fireworks, midnight kisses. But in the upscale community of Cohasset, Massachusetts, January 1st, 2023 began with silence. Anna Walshe, a 39-year-old mother of three and a successful real estate executive, was gone. Her husband, Brian Walshe, told authorities that she had left early that morning for a last-minute business trip to Washington, D.C. But there was no flight booked under her name, no Uber ride, no taxi, no witness, just vanishment. Anna's friends and co-workers grew worried when she didn't show up for work. She was always punctual, always responsive. Now, nothing. No calls, no texts, no digital trail. Her employer reported her missing on January 4th. By then, it had already been too long. As detectives began piecing together Anna's last known movements, they turned their attention to Brian. The charming husband, previously convicted of art fraud, had a tangled past. But nothing quite like this. He claimed Anna kissed him goodbye around 6 a.m. before leaving for the airport. But security cameras didn't back that up. And then came the first clue. Brian told police he had spent New Year's Day running errands with his kids, but a search of his devices told a different story. On his 6-year-old son's iPad, investigators discovered a series of horrifying Google searches, not days before, not weeks, but on the very morning Anna disappeared. How long before a body starts to smell? How to stop a body from decomposing? 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. How to dismember a body? Can you be charged with murder without a body? How to throw away body parts? How long does DNA last? Can baking soda mask body odor? Best tools to dismember a body? Hacksaw versus bolt cutters for bone? What happens to hair in a fire? What temperature does a body burn at? Is a garbage compactor a good way to dispose of remains? 21 gruesome searches, all within a span of 6 hours. Brian's digital footprint laid out not just intent, but method. On January 5th, detectives executed a search warrant at the Walshe residence. What they found sent a chill through even the most seasoned investigators. Blood was discovered in the basement. A damaged, blood-stained knife. A section of the basement floor appeared to have been recently cleaned, bleach still lingering in the air. Trash bags located at a nearby transfer station contained human remains, a hacksaw, a hatchet, bloodied towels, rubber gloves, but perhaps most disturbingly, they found Anna's clothes, the very ones she was last seen wearing. Brian was arrested and charged with misleading a police investigation. Soon after, murder charges followed. Prosecutors stated plainly, he searched Google for how to dismember and dispose of a body. He then used that knowledge to cover up the murder of his wife. They called the evidence overwhelming. Digital surveillance, trash bag GPS pings, store receipts for cleaning supplies and tools, and above all, the damning search history. For many years, killers used to fear fingerprints. Then DNA, now their own phones. Search engines, they don't just answer questions, they record intent. They build timelines. They give us their thoughts in real time. Brian Walshe thought he could outsmart the system, that no one would look at a child's iPad, that deleting a browser tab was enough. But the internet never forgets. And for Anna, it became her voice from beyond the grave, her last defense. Her husband's curiosity became his confession. Can you be charged with murder without a body? Yes, Brian, you can. And you were. On April 12, 2006, the town of Purcell was preparing for spring. Flowers bloomed. Parents tidied up front porches. It was a kind of place where nothing really happened, until the unimaginable did. 10-year-old Jamie Rose Bolin had vanished. Her father, distraught, reported her missing. She was last seen near the town library, only 2 blocks from her apartment. Volunteers formed search teams, flyers were printed. A missing child alert went out. Neighbors opened their homes, including one man, Kevin Ray Underwood, a 26-year-old, soft-spoken grocery store worker, average, forgettable. He lived in the same apartment complex as Jamie. Kevin joined the search. He offered to help put up posters. He told police he'd seen her, briefly, the day she disappeared. But something about Kevin's story felt too perfect, too rehearsed. The next day, police followed up. When they knocked on Kevin's door again, he answered, oddly calm. His story changed, slightly. And inside his home, something felt off. Officers noticed a large rubber tub, duct tape, zip ties, a meat tenderizer, and then a foul smell. They asked Kevin to come in for questioning, and when they opened that rubber tub, they found the body of Jamie Rose Bolin. Bound, gagged, hidden. Kevin had kept her in his closet for 2 days. He didn't just kill Jamie, he had planned to eat her. In custody, Kevin confessed he broke completely. And on his computer, investigators found a blueprint of horror. Google searches included how to kidnap a child without getting caught, decapitation techniques, cannibalism fantasy chat rooms, how to drain blood from a body. Can you eat human organs raw? Where are the most tender parts of the human body? Kevin had been researching cannibalism for years. He detailed it in blogs. He wrote fiction about it. And in a chilling diary entry, he wrote, "Today is the day I finally get to try it." He invited her inside. She thought he was kind. Instead, he struck her with a wooden cutting board, then suffocated her, and began preparing her for his twisted fantasy. But Kevin couldn't go through with it. He froze. He panicked. And in his panic, he left a trail, both physical and digital. So detailed, it was almost a confession. The prosecution called Kevin a monster. The evidence was overwhelming. Police presented his internet search history, his handwritten plans, his confession, the tools, the tub, and his detailed admission of intent. Kevin was found guilty of first-degree murder. The jury recommended the death penalty. To this day, he remains on death row. Kevin Ray Underwood is a case study in how fantasy becomes fatal. He didn't just act out of rage, he planned this, down to the Google searches. He's not insane, he's obsessive, calculated. He thought the internet would protect him, but it documented everything. Can you eat a human liver? That was one of his final searches. The only thing Kevin truly consumed was his own freedom, because Google gave investigators a step-by-step guide to his madness. 19-year-old Shannon Melendi was a sophomore at Emory, a straight-A student, bright, driven, funny. She had dreams of becoming a lawyer. That Saturday afternoon, she was scheduled to keep score for an intramural softball game nearby. It was a simple task. She'd done it before. But this day, she never came home. Her roommate reported her missing when she didn't return that night. Police took the report, but with no signs of foul play, they had little to go on. She'd simply disappeared. The last known person to see her alive was the umpire at the game, a man named Enrique Soto. At the time, Soto gave no reason to suspect him. He was quiet, polite, and cooperative, but something didn't feel right to Shannon's family. Her parents clung to hope, but no proof was given, and the caller couldn't be traced. It would be 10 years before Shannon's fate was revealed. Inside were hundreds of files, many related to Shannon. Searches included tracking someone without their knowledge, how to destroy bones, kidnapping for sexual purposes, voice changer phone technology, burning fingerprints off skin. He had also downloaded pictures of Shannon from university websites. He had been stalking her digitally for years. Some photos were altered. One was photoshopped to make it look like she was lying in his bed. They compare it to Soto's speech patterns. It matches. Further investigation uncovers a notebook. Inside, hand-drawn maps, dates, a timeline of her disappearance. Enrique Soto had taken Shannon, murdered her, and incinerated her remains at a remote campground where he once worked. No physical body was ever found, but his digital obsession gave her back to her family. Enrique didn't want to be caught, but he needed to keep her. He kept digital souvenirs, like trophies. That's classic behavior in narcissistic killers. He believed no one would ever look inside that computer. He underestimated how far technology would evolve. In a case without a body, the evidence lived online. In search bars, image files, archived pages, even in the echo of his voice on a tape recorder, the same tech he used to hide his crime became the tool of his undoing. 10 years after she vanished, her story ended, not in the way anyone had hoped, but with truth and justice. It's a question that haunts investigators and psychologists alike. Why do killers Google? Why, after committing or even planning a murder, would someone sit down at their laptop and ask a search engine how to hide what they just did? The answers lie at the intersection of psychology, technology, and human nature. Let's break it down. Killers Google for the same reason we all Google: curiosity, anxiety, and the desire for control. But for them, it's about control over life and death, over narrative, over evidence. Search engines become their silent partners in crime, or so they think. How to dismember a body? What does decomposition smell like? Can you be charged without a body? Can police trace deleted searches? These are not just technical questions, they are confessions, typed in real time. Criminals today don't just leave behind DNA, they leave behind data, digital footprints, search logs, location histories. Often, it's not just one search that condemns them. It's the pattern, the timeline, the story their browser history tells. In the case of Brian Walshe, his searches aligned to the minute with his wife's last known movements. Kevin Ray Underwood's searches mirrored a fantasy, years in the making. And in each case, the killer thought they were being smart, careful, invisible. But they forgot one crucial truth. The internet is not a vacuum. It's a mirror. We always say, if you wouldn't say it out loud, don't put it in writing. But these killers do worse. They type out the entire crime plan. And when we subpoena those search logs, it's like they confessed. They tell us when they started planning, what they were nervous about, how they tried to cover it up. Best way to burn a body. Does bleach remove DNA? How long before someone reports a missing person? These aren't just searches. They are timestamps. They are emotions. They are evidence. Killer psychology in the digital age is a paradox. They plan meticulously, but they slip through tiny cracks because of impulse, a sudden need to know, to control every variable. And so they turn to Google, like we all do. But in their case, it's fatal. Google is the modern killer's journal, a confession typed in private and saved forever. They Google because they're scared, because they're arrogant, because they don't believe the data will catch up with them. But it does. It always does. In a courtroom, a typed search can carry more weight than a fingerprint because it shows intent, premeditation, and often conscious guilt. For law enforcement, a browser history is a map, a digital trail that leads from thought to action to arrest. And it's changing how crimes are solved. Because in the end, the most advanced detective, it is often not human. It's a search engine. The truth is, we all search for things. But what would your search history say about you? Let us know in the comments which case shocked you the most, which search made your blood run cold, and do you think, in the future, every crime will leave a digital trail? If this story gripped you, if it made you think twice about the power of what we Google, like, subscribe, share, and remember, it's not just what you do that defines you, it's what you search for. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more gripping true crime breakdowns, mysteries, and criminal psychology stories, only on Twisted Case.